While episode 1 was a very good start to this series, this episode gives us exactly what we want the show to be. Hey guys, here I'm for Luke Cage, Season 1, Episode 2, Cold to the Streets, and holy shit, one episode. I mean, this show is already off to a crazy start, I have to say. I mean, this episode, I knew, obviously, from the first episode that things were going to get moving very quickly, because it already seemed like a lot was going on, but I didn't expect to this extent, because while the first episode, there was stuff that happened, there wasn't anything that substantial. It was pretty much just setting up the show and setting up, Cottonmouth and things like that. It didn't focus a ton on Luke Cage. This episode, no, this is a complete opposite. This episode is devastating. It's honestly kind of tragic. It's epic. It's heroic, and it really is everything I think people want in this show. I love this episode. This was 10 times better than the first episode, and I really do love where this episode is going, because while episode 1 was us getting reintroduced to Luke Cage, this episode is the reemergence of Luke Cage, and I really did love it overall. But let's just get into this episode, because there is a lot to talk about. Like I said, there was a lot going on in this episode, and this episode was the complete opposite of episode 1. If you guys thought the show was going to be a slow burn, this episode confirms that you have no idea really what we're getting into, and I really did love that, because I really do think after this episode, the real plot of the show is about to start. But we start off the episode, we see Luke is standing and he's contemplating his actions, I guess for what he did the previous night, but he's held at gunpoint by a young thug, and he calls him a black man, but of course the impolite version of it. And I thought it was interesting that we saw, Luke try to tell him that he doesn't enjoy him saying the N-word and things like that, because again, we know he had that swear jar in episode 1, and just that little scene where he's talking about how I don't appreciate you swearing and, calling me that, and he first tries talking about it, pulling the trigger, but it's clear this kid has no sign of respect when he calls Luke a dead man, and you can tell this isn't going to end well for him. But that was an awesome way to start the episode, because right away we don't know what's going on here. Where'd this kid come from? How did Luke get himself involved in this? I mean, we obviously know Luke's not going to die, because if he pulls the trigger and shoots him, nothing's going to happen. But either way, I thought it was a very good way to start it out, and already set the stakes up very high, because we really didn't know what was going on. I thought that perfectly set things up. I really did love that overall, and I definitely really did like what we saw there. But we then see the cops, they're looking over the photographs from the robbery gone wrong, and Misty Knight tries to revisit the scene, which I forgot to say, Misty Knight actually is a very substantial character in the Marvel Universe, and I heard that she might actually, they're in talks to actually give her possibly her own series with her father, and if that's true, I'd really like to see that, because the actress already is doing a phenomenal job, and we get a lot more of her in this episode, but she envisions it as best as she can, but her boss chides her for taking that approach. She doesn't think it's the right idea. He feels that obviously this is not going to end well for them. I mean, they already know how dangerous the scene is, and by doing that, it's just going to be even worse. And while they know that Chico is responsible, since he's last from that scene who's alive, it's another matter trying to track him down, because this guy is very dangerous. I mean, he's involved in some really shady shit, and this could really end badly for them. So while I appreciate Misty obviously, trying to do what she can to solve this case, at the same time, Chico is a very dangerous man. I don't really think she understands what she's getting herself involved in, which I thought was interesting. So we head back to Pop's barbershop, and Luke is present. Pop then lectures Luke about his low ambition despite his gifts, and because he doesn't really understand it, because he has these, powers, and he just, he can't think of Luke. This is a guy that he can't get shots, he can't, he can't be punched. I mean, he's pretty much indestructible. But at the same time, he has no confidence in himself whatsoever. He seems like he doesn't even want this, and he doesn't really understand. He tells him about the scene at Genghis Khan's and says that he knew that Luke was responsible, and that Luke really did do a good thing there, that he knows what Luke is capable of. And I really am loving what we got with Pop and Luke in this episode. I've really been liking this character, and they do some really great stuff with him. But in the middle of Pop's heart-to-heart with Luke, Shades and Cottonmouth walk into the barbershop, but they don't want any trouble, actually. They're actually paying customers for the best barber in town, and at this point, Luke does not know, Luke is trying to pretend like he doesn't know what Cottonmouth is really involved in and who Shades is. They're actually being kind of calm about it. And Pop then asks Cottonmouth why his hands are so bloody. And we get this brilliant monologue with Cottonmouth that I just thought was absolute perfection. I loved this monologue here, where he's talking about how people's, how razors are so interesting to him, and, how people are different just by razors, and, he says his hands are so bloody because it's due to shaving, hence why he sought a professional. I guess he can't shave for himself, but just such a good scene. I love the way that was done, and they're just little scenes like that. I really loved it overall, and, I really did love that scene. I thought it was very well handled, and I really did love the way they did that scene. I thought it was fantastic, and I really loved what we got there. Really good monologue overall, and again, I'm really loving that character so far. So Luke does his best to keep a low profile around Shades, because obviously Shades is someone he knows, and Shades could really end up in, getting him in an even worse situation than he's already in. But he still doesn't seem to recognize him, It doesn't seem like Shades can tell, oh, this is Luke Cage, and we don't know if it's that Shades didn't see Luke and that he just knows his voice. Again, we don't fully understand what Luke and Shades are in. That's what makes this so compelling, is that we don't really know what their whole, deal is. What is the beef that Luke has with Shades that's so bad that he's trying to keep such a low profile from? However, he inadvertently breaks his mop, which he tells Shades is because it's old, and Shades inquires about Chico, a regular of Pop's, pretending that he's an old friend, but Luke's on him, states that people come and go, and he knows, obviously, that what they're trying to do is not good, because Cottonmouth leaves Pop even more concerned about Chico, so he actually asks Luke to find him, and Pop wants to get him back to the shop, aka Harlem, Switzerland, we find out, and I thought it was interesting we saw that, but Cottonmouth waxes poetic about Luke's name, since it's from the Old Testament, and he's into old school guys who are all about an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, fire and brimstone. Perhaps that's why he beat up Shameik in cold blood, which that's something that I really do like pointing out in the show, is that they have used guns in the show, but Cottonmouth seems like a guy who's very much focused on, using his bare hands as opposed to using guns, and that's something I definitely really do like with this character. This is a character that approaches things very differently than other characters would. He'd rather, beat someone up with his bare hands than beats him up with a gun. And again, just little things like that I found so interesting. But while Luke is capable of that, he chooses not to go down that road. And when they leave, Pop reveals that he figured out Cottonmouth killed Shameik and wants them to track down Chico before they can, because he obviously is very concerned about Chico. He doesn't want to put Chico at risk, and he feels that Luke finding him is the best way to do it. He wants him to take him to this thing called Harlem, Switzerland, so they can broker a peace deal with Cottonmouth. And initially, Luke says no. He says no at first, but Pop reminds Luke that he owes him for not asking questions when Reva married an ex-con and for keeping his secret. So I'm guessing that Pop was Reva's father. That's kind of what I got at this, because we know he's not Luke's father. I guess he just calls him Pop because he's his father-in-law, but that's what I got, that this was Reva's, father, but Luke pounds the pavement for Chico and basically decides that, definitely, and especially when getting Reva involved, this really seems to be one of the driving forces for Luke. Luke is so, focused on how Reva died and how, he feels so bad about it. I thought it was very interesting to see that, but he wants to do whatever he can to get him to track down Chico before they can, so really good stuff right there. And already the episode was off to a great start. I already was loving it. It just gets better as it goes on, though. We then see Misty. She goes down a local court with her partner to play some horse with the kids, and we find out a little bit more about Misty in this episode, which I thought was interesting that we saw. We find out that Misty actually grew up in this neighborhood and that she was actually a really good basketball player, and I don't really think that's something that we knew, and I did like seeing that overall, because I don't really think that was something that they told us about, but basically, she tells them that if they win, they get immunity for all their felonies, but if she wins, they have to spill the beans about Chico, and she ends up knocking them all down without missing, so you can see that she's actually very talented at basketball, and I really like seeing that. Again, it just adds to Misty's character. This is not a love interest character. This is not a woman who doesn't really know what she's doing. No, this is a woman who is on her own. She's doing things for herself, and she's not gonna let anyone tell her what to do. And I'm already loving this character. There aren't many characters as good as Misty Day right now, with police Chiefs, like, with police type characters, and I think Misty Day already, I'm real loving what they're doing with her. She really is fantastic, and I could see her end up being probably one of the best female characters in the show, definitely. I really am loving what she's doing, but we then see Luke. He does track down Chico, and he makes an entrance by literally destroying his door, which was crazy, but he destroys the door, and basically we see he tells him that Shameik is dead, but he doesn't believe that he killed Dante. He just doesn't feel he's capable of that, and he also warns him that he found him in 4 hours, so imagine how quickly one of Cottonmouth's hired guns, or the cops, could have tracked him down. So Pop then meets him later at the shop and chides him for his stupidity. And basically we see he opens up to Luke about the past. And we learn that he used to run around with Cottonmouth and Chico's father back in the day before he went to prison. Of course, we do know that Pop went to prison. And I like that we found out that he did in fact know Cottonmouth. Because we know that Cottonmouth is a regular customer at the barbershop. It's not like Luke hasn't seen him around before. I mean, they've seen each other. And just as Pop and Luke finish chatting, Chico shows up at the shop looking for Sanctuary, and I thought that was very interesting to see overall. I really did like where that is headed. So obviously, Misty did in fact win the horse battle. We saw how good she was at basketball. Since they end up at the barbershop while Pop tries to stall them, Luke recognizes her from last night. Obviously, this is very awkward because he's realizing, oh shit, I just slept with a detective who knows a lot of information and clearly is trying to get information out of me. And when he sees her, Luke says that she's found some better clothes to adopt in, because again, she says she was an auditor, and the detectives don't find what they're looking for while Luke has lots of explaining to do, because again, he didn't really tell her what he's doing. She thought that he was just a bartender. Clearly he's, there's definitely more going on with him than that, and I already really like this. I like that this isn't just Misty, kind of like a comedy thing. There's definitely reasons why Misty is investigating Luke, and we don't really know what exactly she's looking into, but we know that Luke obviously is a fugitive, so already this isn't going to end up well for him, and I do like the way that's going. So Luke goes directly to Harlem's Paradise, but not to work his shift. He wants to meet with Cottonmouth and Mariah, basically. That's why he wants to go to them, and I thought it was interesting to see. He wants to set up a parlay with Chico, and basically, we don't know really, what he's trying to do here, but he wants to do whatever he can to go to them, because he wants to get some answers out of them and basically get some intel, basically. And I did think it was interesting, the scene where we see, rushes over to plead with Cottonmouth to give Chico safe passage if Chico returns all the money, because he doesn't want Chico to die. They need to keep Chico alive. And Cottonmouth simply agrees to come for a haircut the same time tomorrow. So it seems like, alright, this might actually work out, that Luke might actually convince Cottonmouth to do that. And Cottonmouth, as intimidating as Cottonmouth is, he does kind of seem like a reasonable guy in some regard. And I do like seeing that with Cottonmouth overall. You can tell why he's going to be the villain, but I think they're doing a good job of giving us reasons to actually root for this guy and actually see, what kind of, what really he's doing, because what he's doing, again, just like Wilson Fisk and just like Kilgrave, he sees as right. He doesn't see it like it's wrong. He knows, he sees it as right, and I think it's very interesting the way they do that. So he wants to have a parlay and shows them a photo of the two back when they ran the streets together, but his plan goes south. It seems like everything's good, but then Tone, the character that we met in Daredevil, Turk is hiding out in Daredevil, and he's now hiding out in Harlem playing chess with Bobby Fish in Pop's shop, and he finds out Chico is in the back room of the shop. He tips off Shades and Tone to his whereabouts because he wants a payday, and Tone basically decides to take matters into his own hands, and obviously we don't know really what he's going to do, but he shoots up Pop's shop while Pop is giving a little kid a haircut, and this is this crazy scene. Cottonmouth tries to fire Luke on the way out, but he says he quit before he walked in, and it seems that Luke is not going to be at Harlem's Paradise anymore, which is interesting, and once his, because again, he doesn't really want to work for him, but once his honor gun tells him that they tracked down Chico, Cottonmouth sends people over to the barbershop. Luke goes back there thinking that the meeting was successful and that everything's fine, and I like that Luke thinks that, he seems to think, alright, this actually worked out, maybe we're off the hook, but they're coming armed and dangerous. Chico tries to leave the money, but Cottonmouth's gunmen shoot up the shop before he can. Luke is unscathed, but pretends to play dead, while Pop isn't so lucky, unfortunately. Pop does, in fact, get shot, and I was shocked that Pop died, that Pop got shot, and we see the Pop, he is in fact dying, and it's very Spider-Man-esque, but in a sense where it's a little bit darker than Spider-Man, because with Spider-Man, that was just a kid who was a teenager and things like that. Peter Parker did not have as much losses as Luke Cage does, so it's even sadder for Luke Cage, and also knowing that Pop really was this mentor figure for him, really someone who saw his powers. We see that he's dying. He tells him to always go forward and never backward. And I feel like that's really one of the big messages of this series is that, you need to go forward in life. You can't go back, and that's something that Luke clearly wants to do. And I like that Pop is telling him, look, you can't do that. You need to look forward, and you need to understand that, that's where you need to be. And I thought it was just a very powerful scene. And Mike Colter just did such a great job in that scene. I love the way that was done. And Luke ends up ditching the board. We see very quickly that Luke ends up, ditching this whole boring, reluctant hero routine because it's just not going to work for him anymore. So Misty arrives at the barbershop to find out what happened, and because she was so close with Pop, she's puzzled to see that Luke is unharmed, even though his shirt is riddled with bullet holes from shielding the little boy. She doesn't really understand him. She doesn't really know what's going on there, and she wonders how Luke survived it. He doesn't bother giving her an excuse and simply tells her that he doesn't need to see a paramedic. It's clear that he doesn't really want to talk to her right now, and this is just going to make him more suspicious. And I don't think he's really concerned about that, but he definitely should be, because Misty is on the case for him. She's going to go after him, and I think this is just going to make him more of a suspect than she thought he was. And now we're really starting to see what Misty's going to do. Is she going to be the anti-hero of the show? No, I wouldn't say she's an anti-hero, but she is in fact there to gather information about Luke, and her knowing this is just going to make her a little bit more suspicious into what's going on with him, because again, they don't really know how he works, they don't know that he's an Inhuman, they don't know any of that stuff. So back at Harmon's Paradise, Tone and Shades return with the money, comparing the scene to Django Candyland, but when Shades tells him the Pops died, and I love the scene where Cottonmouth specifically says, don't call me Cottonmouth, because he's obviously very upset. He didn't want Pop to die, and that's something I really did love, is that Cottonmouth is not the one that killed Pop. It was, in fact, Tone that killed Pop. Cottonmouth wanted nothing to do with that. He really respected Pop. This is someone that he went to every single day. He felt better about himself, and things were about to go really well with Luke. He actually did agree to Luke's settlement, and it seemed like things actually did go well there, but Tone pretty much fucked up the entire thing, and obviously Cottonmouth has a reason to be upset here. So Cottonmouth tells them to not even call him Cottonmouth anymore because they don't deserve, to call him that. He's not, they're no longer his allies. He's obviously very pissed at them, and that's understandable. And scenes like that are really getting us to get behind Cottonmouth. All the shit he does, you understand why he does it. And really, he isn't necessarily a bad guy. And that is something I like seeing about Cottonmouth, is that while he is sort of a villain-like character, he's not really a bad guy, and I do like seeing that. So Stokes gets upset, obviously gets very upset. He proceeds to, basically, we see Turk shows asking for his money. Cottonmouth responds. He tosses Tone off the roof, tells him to go retrieve the money from the corpse, and very interesting scene the way that was done. But again, you can't really blame him. I mean, Tone's the one that fucked up this entire thing. He tells Mr. Barrett he can collect his money from him downstairs, and he just casually throws him off the roof, and obviously this isn't gonna go well. And Mariah isn't happy that she got her money back because all the blood that came with it. And like I said, I don't think Mariah really realizes. Now, Mariah's not in this episode a lot. She was only in a couple scenes, but that scene we got of her, I think we're really seeing that again. Mariah doesn't really realize what she's getting herself into. I mean, this is a very dark business, and it's not just for her benefit. I mean, I think Cottonmouth generally does want to help her, but at the same time, he can't really control the business he's in. I mean, it's kind of out of his control. She got what she paid for, and she can't really do much about it. So we then get to the ending, which I love the ending of this episode. We see, back to the flash forward, he gives the thug an impassioned speech about Crispus attacks as well as Pop, and he isn't going to be reserved any longer. He takes the gun from the kid, shoots himself to show that it doesn't affect him, and this obviously scares the kid away. Luke vows to clean up the streets, and this basically shows the reemergence of Luke Cage, the hero. He is no longer going to be hiding in the shadows, and that is the way the episode ends. Really great stuff overall, but let's just get in this episode because I have a lot to say about this one. So guys, it is only episode 2, and I'm already finding myself completely hooked on this show. I am loving everything about Luke Cage, because here's the thing. Another show would have taken 4 or 5 episodes to have this arc of Luke not wanting to get involved and Luke trying to avoid conflict and just trying to start over. But no, this is episode 2, and already Luke is deciding, no, I need to be a hero. I can't just, be this janitor. I need to actually be a hero and step up, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to do that, because that's what I want to see in the show. As much as I like seeing Luke, dealing with his, his deceased wife's death and everything, I do like that now that Pop is dead, this is giving Luke motivation. Pop was always the one that said, you need to go and, use your powers, for good, not for, use your powers for good and service yourself, because he is a lot more powerful than he thinks, and I'm looking forward to seeing really how that's all going to turn out. I'm just looking forward to seeing Luke Cage the hero overall, but this definitely is going to complicate things with Cottonmouth, because it seems that these two had a genuine bond, and how long is Luke going to be able to keep this whole identity of him and Cottonmouth? And now that he is, in fact, being a hero, is he going to keep his identity from, Shades and Cottonmouth? Because to me, with him saying, I'm not going to, I'm not just going to, I'm not going to hide any longer, it kind of makes me think that maybe he is, in fact, going to reveal to Shades and Cottonmouth who he really is. And that's really going to complicate things if he is, but I could honestly really see him doing that. So we'll have to see where that's going. I think that's very interesting. Cottonmouth and, Shades, though, they're kind of fucked right now because they just lost, they just, killed Tone. Tone obviously really ruined things for them, and we don't really know what's going to happen there, but we know that Turk is leaving to go back to Hell's Kitchen because it's just not safe in Harlem, and I know the line was kind of cheesy, where they said, they're off the hook, but he's going back to Hell's Kitchen, but we can see that Cottonmouth, again, this is not the guy, Cottonmouth is not the leader here. He's the leader of the nightclub, but he has another boss, and I think we're going to meet said boss in the next episode. We didn't meet him yet, but we are going to meet him in the next episode, and I can't wait to see the way that whole confrontation goes down. Mariah, I really do feel bad for her, because I think Cottonmouth generally does want to help her, at least that's what I'm getting, but unfortunately, because of what he's involved in, and because of the price that, they had to pay, and Pop's death, she's obviously not happy about this. I mean, yes, she's happy to get the money, but she knows she didn't get it for the right reasons. This is very dirty money, and it's definitely going to get her in big trouble, because again, she's supposed to be the face of, the savior of Harlem, the one that's going to clean up Harlem, but it seems like Luke is going to assume that role now, and I think there's definitely going to be some friction there, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. I really love where we're headed with Misty, let me just say. I really am loving where they're going with her character, with her and Luke overall, because again, she's not a love interest for Luke. She now has this information. She's probably going to start assuming more about him, and that's going to make things even more interesting, and how that's going to complicate things. I can't wait to see the way that turns out, because that's going to be just really interesting overall, and where that's going to go, I can't wait to see. And then as far as, what's going to happen with the whole Harlem situation, how is Harlem going to be fixed? Because obviously, like I said, Harlem is just a very crime-filled city, and with people like Pop's getting killed, I mean, if they can kill Pop, I think it very much shows that no one is safe on the show. Pop seemed like he was going to be a mentor of sorts to Luke. Did I think that Pop was going to die? Yeah, I thought he was going to die. I did not think he was going to die this early, and I really do give the show props for doing that, because this was an origin story of sorts for Luke, and now we have gone away from it, and now we actually can move forward with the real plot of the show, and I like the show is doing that. So many shows nowadays drag on, and it seemed like Luke Cage was going to be one of those shows, and I'm happy to see that they aren't that. They are, in fact, moving forward. They're not going to be slow-paced, and that immediately sticks out from the other Netflix shows, because the other Netflix shows like Jessica Jones and Daredevil took so long to get going, and that's not a bad thing necessarily. I am fine with the show taking a few episodes to draw out some exposition and needed character development and get us into the real, stakes for what's setting up. I'm perfectly fine with that. With a show like Luke Cage, though, where you already have, where you have an already established character who we've met before, and we just know, we're finding out a few key things about that we just didn't know, I think it was the right thing to do to move forward and really make Luke the hero that we want him to be. And overall, guys, I'm really loving this show overall. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Love your thoughts on it. I'm definitely going to get through this quickly. I don't know if I'm definitely not going to finish it in 4 days. I mean, I have 4 days off from school. I don't know if I'm going to finish it in 4 days, but I can see myself getting through this pretty quickly to the point where I could even finish this next week. I could really see that happening, but let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Love your thoughts on it. I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for tonight's episode of The Exorcist, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.